Hey everyone, good morning and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochrane. I want to welcome you to the podcast. And yes, this camera is in focus for this show. On my regular show, I started for the first 2 minutes with an out of focus camera, but anyway, we're in focus today. So welcome for our end of the year New Media Show. Of course, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Doing great, Todd. This is the last episode of the year. It's amazing. We're going to be in 2018. Who would have thunk?
Yeah, just time is flying when you're having fun, right? So
Yes.
And fun we have had. So we're fast approaching 200 episodes. This is 195 for us on the New Media Show. That doesn't include I don't know, we did a couple hundred with the Saturday Morning Tech Show. So yeah. So it's going to be big 200 here in sometime, well, probably in February by the time I get back from CES. But anyway, on the last show, we said we'd give our predictions for the coming year, but I will mention that our episode on talking about the Apple Podcast stats definitely got a lot of social traction.
Yeah.
A lot of people were commenting that they liked our real-time live, analysis. So
yeah. So since then, have you had any clue on why it's been crickets on that topic? I mean,
no.
Yeah.
But my stats go down for, if it don't update in 2 hours and I have 25 tickets, so.
Yeah.
But no, we've heard nothing. But Charles has been out and about. He was in one of our Facebook forums day before yesterday, commenting on something one of our users said. So they're watching, so they're hanging out and looking at the feedback. So, but this wasn't even a stats related issue. It was basically about, it was, and how that, like, an Australian listener who has U.S. listeners, some of their stats data is showing up in the U.S. store versus the Australia store. So so there's some things there. So it makes me wonder: if I'm having listens in Australia, does that mean that some of my listens will be showing up in the Australia section?
I didn't see any data outside of the U.S. in the tool, though.
Yeah. So does that mean I have to log into the Australia store to get Australia numbers?
I don't know. I think the big thing we have to keep in mind here is I think we're still in beta. Things may not be completely working fully yet.
So. Yes, I agree. Yeah. But anyway, so therein lies the question, and so I guess we'll see. But Jonathan, thanks for the shout out on the show. Loving the show. We love the show too. But thanks for your comment on Facebook. For those of you that are watching live, and if you're watching on YouTube per se, we are available at newmediashow.com/live, and of course we're on Facebook as well. So if you're on there, feel free to jump over on the live chat on newmediashow.com/live. It's just another place you can go if you're watching on YouTube. So, Rob, how much time did you put into making your list up here?
Actually, as far as my predictions for next year?
Yeah.
I've been actually writing an article is what I've been writing. So I haven't pushed it out yet. I was supposed to get my predictions to the Rain News folks, and I just haven't had time to do it. So I don't know if you got asked for that, but
nope.
But anyway,
I guess I'm not on there. I'm not on the list anymore.
Oh, okay. I know it's a pretty long list of people. But anyway, it's So I was pulling that together and just got pulled away to a bunch of other stuff and haven't got that over to him. But I did actually write an article that I'm going to post here soon. on this topic. It's pretty much written. Just talking about, like I did last year, it was really more of a focus on like an evolution, because that's what we are. I know. I mean, a lot of the predictions documents get all lofty and things like that, but what we're doing is we're evolving this medium from year to year. It gets a little bit better, or it changes a little bit. It doesn't change dramatically.
Right.
And I think people get caught up in this whole dramatic change, and I just don't see it. But I think, Todd, if we look back over the last couple of years, I think we would probably both agree that it's been kind of a content era.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And how content has really transformed this medium, and really, I think, propelled its growth. And in the technology side, you're probably a little bit of an exception here, because you're constantly innovating on the technology side. But the technology side has been really kind of stagnant. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that I think we've reached a certain level of technology innovation in the podcasting space that I don't know that we need a lot of technology innovation to grow this medium. I don't know. I mean, just at a top level, I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Well, I just, from our perspective, I'm pushing the wrong buttons here this morning. From our perspective, from a internal company perspective, I've told the dev team we're going to come out of the new year. We've got a product we're basically getting ready to launch that we're testing, and besides that, I told the dev team, let's spend 60 days at least of just going in and refining what we already have, making improvements, cleaning up anything that needs to be fixed, quirks for the support team, stuff that it's just this. You have this ever growing, nagging list of stuff that everyone wants done. And when you're building new stuff all the time, you don't always go back and touch that stuff. So we're going to spend a dedicated time really cleaning and improving and updating some interfaces. And so, for us, I think you'll see one product announcement in the early year, but after that, it's, we're going to be working internal on the tools, at least inside company. We've got I've got a list, Rob. I'm sure you guys do too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's never ending of want.
But it's also what's better is also, I think, improvements of user experience, functionality, trying to drive some efficiencies to the back end network to save money. Because a lot of us are running on, AWS, which charges you for processing cycles. So you have to be efficient with your code too, in order to be more profitable. So there's those aspects too. I know I'm talking about Spreaker and now with Blog Talk Radio, we spent a lot of time trying to drive efficiencies to the platform, whether it be on the usability side or the back end side, which users don't see, of how things function and how they work and how efficient they are. So we can drive down our server bandwidth costs, those kind of things. So those are all important things, and I'm sure Angelo spends a fair amount of time, and it sounds like that's the direction that you guys are pointing for the new year too, is working on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's and it's overdue, to be honest with you. And we've got a bunch of stuff that needs touched. So I don't care, to be honest with you, how long it takes. We're gonna get her done, and if it's 90 days, that's fine. The product is mature enough to the point where there's a few, there's stuff I still want, and we're still hiring too. So I guess it all depends on, as we bring more bodies on to bear, and it takes a new body a little time to get up to speed. But we've got defined task lists, and they're going to be busy. So at the same time, our support, at least on our side, what we're seeing is that support doesn't end Monday through Friday. Support's a 7-day deal now. So, we're going to add another body on the support side to make sure we have additional weekend coverage, just because that, podcasters are working day jobs, and on the weekends, they need help. So that's when we're that's when we're going to make sure we have people available. So it's an ongoing, it's just part of a growing business. But I think from a space standpoint, I've heard of at least 3 or 4 people that I actually know. These aren't people that are like unknowns to me, which happens so often, but 3 or 4 people that are getting ready to launch boutique companies that are going to be basically working to sign, content creators to, help them get advertising and do whatever they're going to do in their businesses. So I think in 2018, we're going to definitely see more boutique companies that's going to launch that are going to have a cadre of shows. So, how effective they're going to be, that's a good question, but time will tell.
Yeah, I agree. I see those companies, reaching out, looking at building their own little network of shows. There's just a constant stream of folks wanting to create content, and that it just 2018 is really going to be a continuation of the content explosion that's happening. And I'm hearing, and it was talked about on the Podcasters Roundtable last night with Ray and Dave Jackson and whatever. I was on that, and we're talking about one of the big things that needs to happen, and somehow this industry or this medium needs to figure out how to drive some more marketing around building audiences and building listeners to the medium. I don't know what the solution is to that. I guess we've been really kind of living off of the popularity of the shows, of the new shows, to drive new users or new listeners to podcasting. But I think that's an important thing for the industry to start thinking about, is how can we all work together, or how can we as individual companies do more outreach or do more things to reach out to listeners out there, or are we just going to accept natural, organic spreading of the word of podcasting? And that may be where we land, because this medium is so diverse and so distributed, and we're a bunch of stray cats out here that like to do our own thing. That I don't know, Todd, do you think we're ever going to be able to come together as a medium to drive focus around building audiences like radio has and TV has?
Well, I think sometimes podcasters can be their own worst enemies. And they're so hyper-focused on Apple, and we've talked about this 100 times on this show. So I think that's part of it. As far as, some things that, I think we've all determined the best way podcasts are discovered. Podcasts are still discovered word of mouth and people sharing. And I listened to a cool show. Matter of fact, I got recommended one at a Christmas party of all things. And someone said, "Oh, you listen to podcasts?" I'm like, yeah. Some of my family has no idea, and their own wife's family. And they said, "Well, I listened to this great show." And I'm like, "Tell me about it." And I told them, they did. And I'm like, "Okay." So I added it to my subscribe list. And then I gave them a couple of shows, and they were like, "Wow, I've never heard of these before." Yeah, these are ones I listen to. Go check those out. So I think that, is where a lot of this comes in. So, you always tell your audience, make sure you're sharing what you're listening to your friends and family. But I don't know. I don't think, to be honest with you, we've talked about this discovery thing, and I don't know if there is a discovery problem. One thing that Tom Webster's in chat says, "I didn't get mine to rain. Not a big predictor anyway." Smiley face, wink. Clinton says, "Cleanup is sexy, but so important." Yes. Mike Kelly says, "It also seems episode side is also stagnant, as it seems like there are so many of the same type of shows, which are interview shows with the same mixture of interviews and interviewees. They all look the same, use the same format template, and all sound the same. I predict a new type of original content being produced, like we have slowly in the past with shows like Serial." Mike, based on what we saw at PodCon, I would hope so too.
Yeah.
Patrick says, "I think continue to speak publicly about how podcast listening has changed our lives. That can influence people." Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Tom says, when podcasting gets to $1 billion, you'll see a real money on audience development. That's not far off. And I think it's, well, yeah. Well, how long do you think it's going to take us till we get to $1 billion, Rob? It took us, 14 years to get to 250 million.
I think it's going to take probably at least another 4 to 5 years, probably.
Tom, what do you think to get to $1 billion? Where do you think how long is it going to take us to get to $1 billion? So I'm, there's definitely a lot of money flowing into the space, but I will say not as much rolled down this year as I expected. I expected more money to roll down. We had more, but no
2 smaller shows. You mean?
Yeah,
right.
But we didn't have anywhere near the level. I would have thought it had been much more that would have rolled down to the smaller shows. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes because, like I keep talking to media buyers, they're frustrated because all the big shows are sold out. They can't get in them. I tell them, sorry, you want to book it, you have to book it a year in advance. And they're like, a year? I'm like, yeah, you got to book this a year in advance. They are full. There's no more. But by the way, here's these
set a year budget on it too.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
And by the way, here's 5,000 shows that you haven't looked at. We
have an opportunity for you right here. Right?
Yeah, here's an opportunity for you. Tom says 3 years to get to $1 billion.
Wow. Okay. He's optimistic.
Wow. If we get to $1 billion in 3 years, that's, here's the thing. There's not $1 billion. If there was I'm just gonna be frank. Let's say we had $1 billion worth of advertising came into the space today. You couldn't fill it all. You couldn't fill all that advertising. You couldn't sell it all.
Unless you went lower in the stack, right? Down.
Even if you sold,
work more with the long tail.
If you sold every show in the stack, there's not $1 billion worth of inventory right now. There's no way there's $1 billion. If there's $1 billion worth of inventory, then I'm way off my rocker. I just don't think. I think there's easy
half of that.
Maybe 650, 700.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's $1 billion. But $1 billion will drive a lot of new content too.
But Todd, the other factor you got to consider too is there going to be downward pressure on CPMs?
Oh, there already is.
Which is going to drive the requirement for larger audiences,
right,
even higher in order to reach that $1 billion mark.
Yep. I've held the line this year on CPMs, but largely because we're still doing purely host endorsed too. So, programmatic's coming, but programmatic's not as far ahead as it is as I would expect it to bend this year as well. So I missed my predictions, but ad injection is going to, this is one of my predictions. Ad injections will continue to increase in popularity. There'll be more. You guys are working on something. We're working on something. Well, you guys already have something, so, we've got, 25, 30 networks lined up that are ready to, to start using injection. And, so we're coming on board with that. And
sure.
But I think initially, though, it's going to be all these boutique companies are going to need it, and they're going to need a provider to provide it for them. So,
and it's going to be a blended thing. There's going to be host reads and there's going to be ad injection.
Yeah,
I think it's not going to be one or the other necessarily, though some will choose just to do the host reads part of this and potentially use ad injection with host reads. But then there's also going to be a place for short radio-like advertising that gets injected in some podcasts. It's happening today. But I do think and one of my other predictions is that, like I talked about earlier, that the technology side really hasn't been a focus over the last couple of years. But I think as we move into higher revenues and higher kind of focus on generating revenue into these companies, and business models start to be developed a little bit more, that we're going to see more technology come into this medium. And we've been seeing a little bit of that, Todd. If you look at what's been happening around podcasting search, now this new tool that came out of being able to edit audio via text. So there is, I'm not saying that's the end all solution to anything, but it does give you a little glimmer that there's some new money, some new kind of ways of looking at this space that are starting to appear. And I think it's a little bit of a hopeful sign. I know that, you're trying to drive some innovation, your platform, getting more involved in, that whole dynamic side. I know we're doing that too with Spreaker. We're trying to build tools that will enable those lower tier shows to be able to monetize. And we've been doing that for quite a few months now, of trying to drive monetization tools that anybody can sign up for and start driving revenue, advertising revenue to their programs, the smaller shows too. So I think that's the opportunity, but I think we are going to see some technology development this year that we haven't seen over the last few years. Just because as that revenue grows, companies feel a little bit more confident in being able to drive investment into, paying developers to work on, new ideas.
Well, I think that one thing I can say with some certainty is that the post roll is dead. Based on what we've.
Is there any way to bring it back, Todd?
No, it's good. I've never sold it anyway. And I think what you're going to end up with is people are going to learn that that last ad needs to be about the 85% spot.
Well, Todd, I think it's very likely that eventually where we're going to wind up is all ads are mid-rolls. To some degree, it depends. I think that the term that I like to use is an early mid-roll, which would be, it's not ideal in my view, and Todd, you probably would agree with this, that pre-roll ads is not a very optimal way.
They're selling like hotcakes.
Oh, I know they are, but it's kind of like putting a stop sign up to your listener too. Yeah. I think you need to get your listener into the show and give them a branded message right out of the gate, and then deliver a longer ad later in the program.
Yeah.
But to have more of a focus on mid-roll, I think is where we're ultimately gonna land. And I think that this blended creative on the host read side and talent reads, which would be pre-produced ads that are produced like host reads. Not like the current radio ads that we have today. And from what I'm hearing and seeing in the market is that those ads are getting shorter, at least the branded ads. I think that the longer host endorsed reads will maintain their value, and those are typically ones that are over a minute long. I think that those will still have a place, but they need to be really authentic storytelling kind of pitches to the audience. I don't know what you think about those things, Todd.
Well,
what's your thought?
If I'm reading, I'm going to go back here before this scrolls off the screen for me. Tom says the post roll isn't dead if we see more created channels, but it's on life support till then. Well, I say the reason post roll is dead is the Apple Podcast stats are pretty clear. Very few shows make it to 100%. Most of them get to that 80 to 96, 97%. Very few shows get all the way to the end.
But Todd, I think that there's a contrarian view there too, that your most passionate fans will make it to the end.
They will, but in order to get paid, you need to get all of them to the end, so, and deliver effective ROI. But Tom also says you're going to see more daily podcasts, which will up more inventory and tune in time-sensitive ad dollars. Programmatic will also help in the long run, but when the winners gain the system for targeting better, we'll have to get through the remnant era, but that Facebook did look how much better your Facebooks are today than they were 5 years ago. Well, I don't. Well, yeah, okay. I think that can be debatable. And stuff I've already bought is what I'm showing up on Facebook ads, but.
So daily content, Tom, why do you think daily content is something that's going to be stronger in the new year? Is that because we're going to see kind of radio networks get more involved in podcasting, and that's what's going to drive that.
Daily's hard for an indie. Daily's hard. I've seen very few daily guys last more than 3 years.
Yeah, well, it's because they burn out.
They burn
usually
out.
Don't have the staff support that a radio network would have. So Tom must be talking about, the more the radio side stepping into this medium and doing more daily content.
But very few radio stations have been very successful in doing podcasts yet. There's a few they're doing it right, but and they definitely have the machine to do it. If they just listen, half the times you can't get them to listen because, my God, they know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's going to be another topic this year. Radio's embrace of podcasting and how much of an impact that's really going to have as they kind of move that direction.
Yeah, Tom says won't be indie. So yeah. Now Marlo says, would shorter shows help get people to post roll? I don't think so. I think people get to the point where they know you're wrapping the show
and they bail.
Yeah. So you need to put that last ad in before you wrap and have something.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. You have to have another mid roll somewhere in there near the end, but where there's still enough juice left in your show to keep them beyond the ad. You can't put it in 3 minutes before you end. You got to put it in 10 minutes before you add, and have a end point or end something at the end that keeps them beyond that, so they don't bounce as soon as they hear the last ad. So
plus, Todd, also on the post roll side, I think it's in more and more platforms. I think the post roll can sometimes conflict with pre rolls.
Oh, of course.
In kind of linear playback experiences. So I think there's another downside to a post roll that more of a late mid roll fixes, is that separation between post and pre-roll.
Yeah, Tom says up first in the daily runaway hits, you'll see more of that, and not from AM/FM. So, well, yeah, I'm sure we will. And if that's the case, but again, highly produced, a lot of money behind those shows.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely won't be indie for sure. So, but again, okay, those are great. Let's say we had 100 of those. It still doesn't move.
It's not going to move a billion. The needle much.
Doesn't going to move $1 billion of inventory. So,
I mean, what is going to move that level of inventory? Is it going to be global distribution?
No, it's going to be rise of. It has to be more listeners. We just have to get the volume. Shows that the biggest shows today. I don't care what anybody says. Show me a show that's broke 500,000 listeners per episode. Those are, that's very, very few. The top shows today, the top shows are doing 250, 400,000 listeners per episode. So now if they can do that daily, that's a serious check. That's some serious money. That'll pay some bills. And I'll pay a staff and writers and everything else. But we need to get, we need those shows at 1 million or 2 million or 3 million or 5 million listeners. Mm-hmm. That's how we move $1 billion.
Yeah.
In this space. Is it coming? I hope so. I surely, God, I hope so. We've worked at this long enough. It's about time. So, but and that will, and again, I think there'll continue to be more roll down, but time will tell. But, I think maybe now, we'll see if the brand advertisers have an excuse now not to run in podcasting. Their big excuse, according to all the experts, which I've always said bullshit, is that the media buyers are saying that they don't know. Of course, we've already proven that download is not dead. The download is actually thriving. So those that want the download to go away, sorry, that's not happening anytime in this next century. God, that's kind of a stretch. But now that we've got this Apple data starting to trickle in, that says, yes, they are listening, you know.
And they are subscribing.
And they are subscribing in heavy numbers, in heavy percentages. We will, maybe the brand advertisers will be more inclined to come in and spend more money. And you show them that.
It's also, I mean, also, Todd, it becomes less of a black hole too. It becomes less of a point that those advertisers can point to and say, you know, the download is bad. You know,
the download,
they've actually done very well on the download, in my opinion.
The download is, you know, it's just, it cracks me up. We talked about it already, but the download is still king by far. It is king, and by heavy percentages across every show that we looked at. It's you know, the download is still rules. And so this misnomer that more people are just clicking play. Yeah, they are. More are.
After it's been downloaded.
Mostly. Yeah. But, you know, I think from this Apple data, I think it'll be pretty compelling. You're going to be able to take that screenshot, you know, from Apple. And you're going to take that segment of listeners that are listening on iTunes or the iOS podcast app, and you're going to be able to tell them, hey, you know, this percentage of my audience is listening after they download. And that's a compelling story to tell in a media kit. Say, this is the proof. You've been asking for proof. Here's the proof. Here's what's happening. The people that have subscribed and are listening to my show on an airplane or listening to my show 3 days later, they're listening. You know, so, and here's where they're listening to. It's wonderful data. And I think it tells a story what we've already known and backs up data, much to some of the pundits, you know, those that want to kill the download it's interesting. We haven't heard nothing about that. Come the new year, we got to watch that, Rob. We got to watch and see if the discussion point around the download is dead, continues based upon the data that we all have in front of us now from Apple.
Yeah. Well, I think also just that availability of that data helps kill that discussion too.
The what? I'm sorry.
Well, the whole angle that they have of why downloads needed to be killed is because it's a black hole.
Right.
Is going away.
Yeah, the black hole.
There is no argument. I mean, less and less. There's an argument there to kill the download.
Yep. And then we do actually seeing, you know, some shows are seeing drop off. I think the lowest, you know, a couple of shows I looked at that, you know, I've been asking people, send me your screenshots, you know, because I've only got access to so many. So I said, send me your screenshots. I'm trying to collect data. And matter of fact, if you want to send me your screenshot, all I'm looking for, I don't care about your numbers. That's the least of my thing. I want to see how long they're listening to your podcast. I want to see your data on when they're dropping off, when you're that curve of when they're bouncing out of your show. So if you've got that and you feel you can trust me with it, send it to me. I'd love to have it and look at it and see, because I think 85% or maybe 82, 83% was of all the shows I looked at was where a show dropped off. And I've been looking at multiple lengths, short shows, long shows, doesn't matter. It runs, but most shows are in the high 90s. So anyway, we talked about this the other day, but I want to see more data.
Todd, I was just thinking about this you know, this tracking now that we're starting to get visibility on of how many people are listening to various duration points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's going to be a factor that comes into the advertising buys that will factor in the percentage of listeners at certain insertion points in the content that's going to possibly have an impact on CPMs?
In the billing?
Yeah.
Because we've got such a small data set.
Yeah, but the advertiser could look at that as a
could say, okay, at
50%,
you know, they could say at 50%, you've lost 10% of your audience, so we're only going to pay you
discount it 10%.
Yeah, you got to discount it. Maybe, maybe, I don't know. But here's the thing. Okay, so let's say it's 100,000 listeners. and you lose 10% of your audience by the 30-minute mark.
Yeah.
It's still only 10,000.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
And so, in the scheme of things, it's kind of a wash, but maybe. But what you'll do is you'll price accordingly.
Well,
you'll make those later spots cheaper. That's what you'll do.
Yeah, and in some ways, it's not a huge factor because most of the advertisers these days are buying based on how many plays or insertions or impressions that you're getting with that ad.
Here's the thing: we've been held to a higher standard since the beginning. Podcasting, no one else is being measured this way. Radio's not.
Well, Todd, they can't be. It's impossible.
Television. Come on. TV's actually being measured pretty good now because of the data that's coming back from your
set-top boxes.
Your set-top boxes. So there's a lot of data coming back on that. And
there's a lot more control on the playback experiences in TV and there's the data that comes out of those things that just doesn't exist much in podcasts.
Right. So, we're closest to radio, and radio, their measurement's really good. So here it is. It's how good do you need it? Is 10%? Is a 10% swag good enough? And we've been working on 2-3% margins, accuracy rise. So, it is what it is. Here's one thing I will say too is that Tom says also, and we've done a ton of private work on this, the late roll audience might even convert more. Yes, I think so. True, Tom.
Yeah, I do too.
I think because they're in the radio
most passionate fans.
They're the P1.
Yeah,
you're right. They're listening to the end, so they are the ones that are most bought in. Absolutely.
and also are probably the most loyal to the show and want to support the show. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Mike says we need to hook up a packet sniffer to inspect the actual packets being sent back to Apple regarding the statistics that are actually being sent back to Apple. Apple is not taking any. Apple's doing this data from in the device and on the application. They really don't need anything from us. We're already able to tell when an action happens from, whatever a file is.
Well, it's all on the server side.
Yeah, it's all on the server side, and, this is where the IEB is going to be next year looking at this because the MRC says we're not going to certify server side stuff. You have, they want client side data, and that's just non-existent. So the IEB is going to look at matter of fact, that kicks off early next year. But here's one thing I think that I'm already seeing, and I just haven't had time to run the data. This is my prediction, but I think I've already alluded to it, that I've seen it, that pod fading percentages are, and I'm going to say this, will continue to drop. I don't think in all honesty, and I need to really run hard numbers next year, but I don't think that 50% of shows are failing within the first episode anymore. I think that number has moved. Everything I'm seeing, and in part of it, in what am I using as a kind of a moment? Retention rates, customer retention rates on just at Blueberry alone, and number of people that have published, and percentage of those customers that are paying their hosting bill every month that have published a new episode within 30 days. And I'm much more convinced that we are not pod fading as fast. So that, there's still a certain percentage of it, but, and I think the 2-year mark still is pretty, is a pretty big marker usually for a lot of shows, but I think the numbers have dropped. I hope so. I might be wrong.
Why do we think that has happened? Is it because the process of publishing and creating a show is so much easier now than it used to be?
Internally, I attribute it to our hands-on with the content creators, and this is just Blueberry thing. We're spending, Rob, I got support team members that are on the phone every day,
Well, I do a lot of support too. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's been an education process too. I know all of the, Lipson, you guys, us, we spend a lot of time on the education side.
A lot, and
yeah.
And it's just that getting them over the hump and then having them be able to call a friend and if you got a concern, or sometimes it's a 3-minute phone call, but sometimes that's the difference between losing them and keeping them, and also them continuing on doing their content. So I think a part of it is that it's not all, but it's a part of the equation. We still have, we just like you guys, we have our, I can almost predict where the cancellation numbers are going to be each month. There's a certain amount that we have. Every company does.
Sure.
People quit. They, life changes. They quit doing their show. They have a baby. Whatever. You get a girlfriend, or boyfriend, or whatever. And all of a sudden something becomes a bigger priority than doing a podcast. But I'm also seeing huge number of people come back. They 6 months later coming back. I'm like, I'm kind of pod faded, but I'm ready to go again. Can you get my media back online? And matter of fact, Angela and I were talking just about that the other day alone too, is because we're seeing a rise in people that are coming back after they've quit. So,
and Todd, I also put on my list as a discussion point about 2018 is that we're going to see more stuff coming out of these major music platforms and the radio networks. We're going to see more content coming out of all those guys, and the music platforms. I'm talking about Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, all of these ones that are out there that have been really well known around music distribution are pushing the envelope into podcasting. They're trying to get involved, and I think that the jury is still out on whether, Todd, we've been saying this for the last 3 years. The jury is still out on the success of any of these platforms offering podcasts and growing any kind of scale with it.
Well,
are they going to learn what they need to learn and deploy what they need to deploy to be successful?
Well, you've already heard me state this so many times. They've got to be inclusive instead of exclusive.
Yeah.
And if they don't,
well, that's just part of it, right?
Well,
that's the biggest part.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And if they're going to continue to be exclusive, then people are going to poo-poo them.
Well, what doesn't make a lot of sense to me is that these major music platforms have been focused on this battle for years. I know I saw it when I was working at on Xbox. Of building the biggest catalog. They were like always bragging about how big their music catalog was. I don't understand why the thinking goes contrary when it starts talking about podcasting. Why doesn't Spotify think, let's build the biggest catalog?
There's music on Spotify that I would never listen to.
Yeah,
it's like, what is this obscure caca?
Well, it's the same thing. If you look at the actual listening
and I'm not
numbers,
saying podcaster that way.
No, I know.
Okay.
But it's an 80-20 rule applies to just about everything, right? I hate to say, but 20% of the podcasting space gets 80% of the listeners. I mean, that's kind of
right.
what it comes down to some degree.
Yeah.
But I think it's a little bit more long tail than that with podcasting. But if these major music platforms want to make a go of this, they need to just open it up to everything. That's the only way that they're going to get long-term benefit.
Except for shows that have music in them.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just a given. But,
yeah.
And that's difficult to do as well, unless you kind of have algorithms that are scanning audio.
Yeah.
And Todd, maybe that's where this technology that's coming out there around podcast audio indexing and search and transcription is why that's coming into this medium, is to discover that kind of stuff. I don't know.
It's already there. We had a podcaster put a Taylor Swift, about 5 minutes of Taylor Swift in their episode, That episode was online about 36 hours before the takedown notice came. So this content is getting scanned already. Podcast content is getting indexed, and the labels and those that do the policing are already watching. This it's not surprising anymore for us to get a DMCA takedown notice on content. And sometimes they don't understand that actually the content's not hosted with me, but because they see my media redirect URL, I get to take down notice along with, and I'm like, okay, you need to actually go over there and talk to them. We can still block it, but the source file is still over at, whoever they're hosting with. And it's not always us, but it is, stuff doesn't stay online long.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there is a use for audio search, but it may not be what everybody wants to think that it is. So I don't know.
I'm just waiting for the first, court order to drop on some podcaster that is playing copyrighted music in their content, and they end up, writing the RIAA or ASCAP or one of those groups a big fat check, for copyright violation. But that's a whole different topic. It's coming. Yeah. It's coming.
As you look to the new year, 2018 may be the year that we see Google and Android come into this medium.
But hey, okay, can't wait. I'll just they're going to do something big.
I mean, if they are going to do something, it is going to be big.
It's going to be big.
There's no question. Why would they not? I mean, they basically admitted that what they've done with Google Play is a failure. So they're going to learn from that and move on.
In counting the number of bodies they had at Podcast Movement, and that little Seattle team, that little Tiger team that's up there that is looking at this thing.
They came by to see me at PodCon too. So
yeah, they're on point.
They are.
And Sergi wants a fix, so let's be frank. Sergi wants a fix. He's tired of Apple having all the accolades in podcasting. When you're given a marching orders by, the circle.
Yeah, exactly. All those little bubbles up there, right?
If any company has the resources, holy cow, to do some quick catch up, they're the ones. But, again, and Google, if you are listening, again, the simple fix is your own native app forced to be delivered in the OEM platforms. It has to be, that'll fix it. That'll fix 90% of it. But it has to be in the OEM release. It has to be right beside Gmail and Google Drive and in that little box, and that little, where's my Android phone I've got? In that little box, it's loaded on every Android phone. It says, Google, you click on it and it's got all the Google ecosphere stuff. It has to be right in there.
Yeah.
And we already got the mechanism for you to do one click on subscribe. You're more than welcome to take it. We've already given that to the community.
and just take it out of Google Play Music. I mean, it's okay if it wants to stay inside of Google Play. That's fine if you want to do that. But it's also probably better to have it just be its own separate platform.
The whole Google Play thing.
Yeah. So.
And it's not like we haven't told. Everyone's been so vocal about this. How could they have gotten it wrong so long? That's maybe they don't listen.
Yeah. Well, it's just a slow moving battleship, right?
Yeah. So anyway, here's my predictions. More boutique companies will launch. Ad injection will continue increase in popularity. More brand advertisers. These are easy ones. I can't fail on these. And pod fading percentages will drop. Again, generalities. But I do think we will see where the new content indie growth is at in the first quarter. December's been slow. And maybe that's, I haven't went back and done comparable, but December's been a little slower than in the previous months. So we'll see where maybe everyone's waiting to the first of the year to launch. I would expect so, but December's been, at least my estimation, or basing on total sales, is just a little down.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I think we should probably talk about too, what kind of new things are we going to see grow faster in 2018 too? And I think you have to talk about the smart speakers, the smart agent technology, and what its growth is going to look like. It's not going to be, I think what you're seeing with this happen, and I know others in the podcasting space have say, well, we really haven't seen a big increase based on these platforms. But I think what you have to look at is you have to look into the future. You have to think, how are people generally communicating with their computing devices, and how is that going to evolve over time? Because it is going to impact podcasting.
So what I'll just use one device as a indication of my concern. And I'm not saying this is going to be a repeat, but when Roku came out, and we all built channels into Roku for podcast content, we saw its market share get as high as 6 or 7%. And then it tipped over and it went the other way. So now,
because it was all video, Todd.
Yeah, mostly. But people listen to Pandora on Roku. All right, so
that's true.
I'm not 100%. But again, we were one of the few companies too that had or channels in Roku for audio. But so now 3%, 2.5%. If we're lucky, that's kind of what the global numbers look on our side. But so the smart apps. And I want to call them, I don't want to call them, there's not actual AI going right now. It's assisted intelligence.
Yeah.
And it'll get to AI, but it's assisted intelligence right now.
Mm-hmm.
At CES, I have no less than like 50 companies that want to talk to me about their new device that has Amazon, Android, all embedded. It's not a Google product. It's not an Amazon product. It's all these companies that are coming out with. So you are going to see everything. Everything that you buy is going to have either Amazon built into it, and I don't want to say the Alexa word because I've got one sitting here, or it's going to have Google's going to be in there, or maybe not so. I haven't seen too much on the Microsoft Cortana side.
Well, and Siri. Yeah, you got to remember Siri too.
They're way behind. They're going to have.
I know. Yeah, but if Apple does something big, there's going to be millions that are going to adopt it, once they actually do it.
So, Mike, here's the key on, he says, really enjoy my smart speakers, but the user interface for podcasting is so bad for podcasting. Someone needs to come up with a better user experience to finding and managing subscriptions on these devices.
It's called natural language. It needs to have better natural language is one of the improvements that needs to happen.
Mike, I'll just say, make sure you have your MicCast subscription up to date at Blueberry. So and so who's owning the podcast experience right now on Cortana? TuneIn is. Who's owning the Amazon experience? TuneIn. On Google, who's owning the experience? Google Play. And it's horrible. So, you just have to learn the words. And I've had to teach my audience how to say this. I do this every show. And if you want to copy this, you can. I say, what the hell's going on here? Did something get deleted? So I tell, if you have an Amazon Echo, you tell beep to play the latest edition of the Geek News Central podcast. And that's or the new media show. On Google Home, you say, okay, beep to play the podcast. Now you have to say just like this. And this again, it is a user issue. You have to say, okay, beep, play the podcast Geek News Central. And if you have the Microsoft device, like I have a little, and it's listening, it started spinning here. Okay, stop.
Faster than any other planet, which is why it was after the tedious Roman god.
Oh my God.
Get used to it, Todd. This is going to be the life of robots. So when we have robots, it's going to be talking to us all the time.
So if you have this, you can say, hey, beep, play Geek News Central. But you have to have this associated with TuneIn. You have to have linked TuneIn to the Cortana device.
Yeah. Well, Todd, that's really where first-party services really come into play with these platforms. Is that what you really want is you want one of these devices to just frickin' play a podcast. So you just tell it, I want to play this podcast, and it plays it, or I want to subscribe to this podcast and let me know when a new episode is available. And it just knows. I mean, you just use natural language communication of these things, and you don't have to pick what service you want.
Right.
Or whatever. I know Spreaker's built an app for the Amazon platform as well,
but there's two steps. You have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I agree.
You have to tell it. What do you have to do? First of all, you have to tell it to add the skill, right?
Correct.
So yes. you have to physically teach people to add the skill, and then you have to,
know what specific words to use to ask it to get to the content. And it's like, these platforms, and I keep saying this, natural language communication with these things is where it's going to go. I mean, it's a few years away. It's definitely going to get there. You're still going to have to call it by name because that's how it knows that you're talking to it. Though it is going to be limited based on the obvious concept that you can't communicate with this thing very effectively in group settings, right? It's going to be in the car, it's going to be in your kitchen, or it's going to be in your living room, or it's going to be using headphones with your mobile device and possibly with your computer. Because if you're in an office area around other people, you're not going to want to be talking to your computer. So, it's one of those things that has been around. The whole Bluetooth headset thing, I think is very much similar here.
But and here's the problem: on Amazon device, I can tell the device play AC/DC Back in Black album, and guess what it will do? It will play the album. I don't have to do nothing any more simple than that.
Yeah.
And they've figured the music out. And it works really well. And sometimes I say, oh, I don't know that. And
because they all have first-party apps in there, right?
And Eileen is saying, Alexa cannot pronounce my name, so they can't find. Oh, I just triggered it. Sorry.
I'm not sure.
Sorry. Those of you who are listening on that device just got stopped. Well, they're not listening no more. I just stopped their playback. See, that's another thing. We will trigger these apps ourselves and stop playback. And that's why I'm trying to be so careful in not saying the word out loud because it. So she says, my Spreaker podcast is there. My Twitch show is there. But because the Echo does not recognize my name, it doesn't find me. If I change the name of my show, it works just fine. Also, Tom says that they're coming out with a new smart speaker research at CES. That'll be cool. He's going to be presenting. Podcasting is still lagging behind where it should be, but these devices are increasing overall audio. And here's the thing. Is it existing or new? I think right now, most people that are using it's existing audience. I don't think it's new. I think people are just, like here in the office, I want to listen to the No Agenda show. Bam, it'll start playing it, But the problem is it doesn't sync. It doesn't, it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that these platforms this is a transition phase that we're going through right now with these devices. Smart speakers, if you look at what Amazon is doing right now, they have shifted away from spending any effort at all around branding the devices.
Oh no,
They've shifted everything over to branding this smart agent technology. And I think as we move into the new year, I think that's how we need to start thinking about these things, because these things are going to be embedded in all sorts of devices. So it isn't going to be just about having this smart speaker on your desk anymore. It's going to be everywhere. It could be in your refrigerator in your kitchen at some point. Could be, who knows where it's going to go.
But
it could be built into your mirror in your bathroom. Who knows?
Here's another thing too. Building a simple skill is easy. Mike built a simple skill for one of his daily shows that he's playing around with. And, he built it himself. And Mike's not a programmer, but you can, and it's relatively inexpensive to program to these platforms too. $5,000-$10,000 is probably what development costs will be for, Rob, I don't know if you want to divulge how much you guys spent, but, I don't expect my bill for, per device to be over 10 grand, for the implementation. Now, okay, so, but do I need to be there? Absolutely. So.
And these smart agents are going to get smarter every year that goes by. The combination of the artificial intelligence that you were just referring to, big data. There's going to be visual elements to these things too. They're going to have face recognition technology that's going to be part of them as well. Home automation is going to be built into these things. So you can see how this is going to transform how we interface with our devices. And thus, it's going to transform how we interface with our podcasts. And I think it's all good, Todd. I think the direction here of what's happening here around smart agent technology that can simplify things in our lives, I think is powerful. As you look at, now we're getting back to more of a technology talk on this, but these are all coming together. Now, granted, there's some danger areas here too, around big data. But also, as you look into the new year, I think one of the other things that we're going to see more of is ad insertion targeting based on demographic data and user information. And I think not specific user information.
Don't be too surprised.
But that, I agree, Todd. There is psychographic and demographic targeting that's going on in a big way across what's happening in the technology sector right now.
There's at least a dozen companies who have pitched me to say, we know who that IP is.
Yeah.
We know who he or she is, and we know everything about them. And all you have to do is integrate to our API. It's there. Yeah. The data's there.
Oh, I agree. I've been pitched to on that. I've been resistant to pursuing that, but at the end of the day, it can produce some pretty compelling user experiences.
They know us better than we know ourselves.
Yeah.
But
it is kind of scary and dangerous too at the same time.
And I can't speak, VPNs in incognito mode is a very good thing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Todd.
I just, but the question there becomes, in order to implement, it's going to get implemented. It's going to happen. It might not be this year, maybe 3 years, 5 years, but when there's enough inventory. So in other words, when I can drop an Amazon targeted ad at someone in a podcast, let's say they were shopping for rice cookers. Let's just use whatever. And I can do a targeted ad in a podcast to a listener promoting a specific brand of rice cookers in a podcast. You'll know we've jumped the shark. It's coming. It's not going to happen this year, but 5 years, probably.
Todd, think Google. Yeah.
And will people get weirded out when that happens?
I don't know.
We were already having it happen on Facebook, right? You're on Facebook
Todd,
now.
Robert Scoble's been talking about this for the last 5 years, is that we are already past the freaky zone.
We are. But so far, podcast listeners have been spared.
Yeah, because there hasn't been any technology driven to this medium.
Well, we haven't. No. We haven't implemented it.
Well, that's true. That's true. That's part of it. But why haven't we implemented it? Right?
Because there's
we've been slow to evolve.
No, we haven't been slow to evolve. There's not enough ad inventory to justify the cost of implementing it.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough.
How do I pay for it? Okay. So let's say I know, Rob, that you listen to, such and such show. What am I going to do with that right now? I can't do nothing with it as a company. I can't. Mm-hmm. I don't have inventory to jam in there,
Yeah.
That's why it hasn't been implemented. Let's just be fair. Yeah, and I'm probably will be one of the last, because I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to go there or not. Because I'm a content creator too. So,
yeah.
But the geographic demographic stuff is that's already in place. That's been in place with a lot of platforms already. But there hasn't been a big call again for geographic. There's been here and there around Thanksgiving, a Macy's deal or something like that, but there hasn't been a lot of geographic demographic time-based advertising in the space. That's going to grow considerably.
Well, that's going to come into the medium when we finally get all these big radio buyers to start buying into this medium.
Yeah, on the programmatic side. Yeah.
Yep. That's going to come in, because those guys have already been doing that on the radio side. They just buy into a particular group of radio stations in a particular market. It's already geo-targeted. So, but that's their mindset, and they're going to apply that. I saw it at Podcast One. There was, like the O'Reilly Auto Parts chain has stores in certain parts of the country, and when they run their audio ads, they want to have those play only in those markets where they have retail stores. So that's the kind of targeting that we're talking about. But that's very much kind of like, shotgun targeting, though. It's not.
So yeah. Tim says, I think people won't care. We're numb to target ads on the internet at this point. But here's the key. Where the holy grail is if all of a sudden I get 5 emails and it says, Todd, you need to create ad copy on each of these. Here's your ad copy. You create your ad copy, reply, send that back, and those go into I create a host endorse for each of those targeted spots.
Yeah, there could be a dozen of them. You're going
to be a dozen, and they would be, and I'd have to create, host endorse content for those I felt comfortable with. That's where the holy grail is. That's where we go to $1 billion, and because we keep the CPMs up, we don't go to 6. We stay at 25 or 20. I don't know.
But Todd, we're also seeing research coming out of Nielsen right now about podcasting. It's been pretty blatant that pretty much running any ad in a podcast is working.
You think?
I don't know how necessary targeting is in this medium, right? I think there's two sides to this argument. Is targeting better? But what Nielsen's starting to show is that targeting doesn't really matter.
Oh, amazing! How many millions of dollars they spend to figure that out? Consulting company. We could have, saved them a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So what's old is new again, right, Todd?
Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and here's another thing. Here's some free advice for all those experts out there. Smaller shows deliver higher ROI.
Yeah. Is that because you don't have to pay much to get on them, or is it because they actually produce results?
Because they have smaller, more tight-knit audiences, and everyone,
that's true.
All these years, I know a lot of my audience by name. I call them out in the show, ask them for their comment.
Yeah, I'm seeing more ad buyers starting to go direct to shows, though. Smaller shows.
Yeah, they are. They're doing that.
More and more. There's fewer and fewer of them, or I shouldn't say fewer and fewer, but there's some that are bypassing the agencies.
Yeah,
just going direct.
Wondery came direct to me this over the weekend.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wasn't going to mention who they were.
Yeah, Wondery came direct to me and said, "Hey, we want to advertise in your show." And I'm like, "Do you know who I am? And what's the deal?"
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
What's the deal? How much is it paying? No
well,
response.
It's also who is the one that's behind it too, is the other one, but I don't really want to say, but he's been a big buyer of podcast advertising at the agency level for years. So I think you know who I'm talking about, right?
Of course I do.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to call him out.
Yeah. Said, Mike says, consider this a sub-audio keyword triggered by Amazon that isn't human detectable, that gets triggered by a TV show you're watching. It triggers Alexa and reports viewership back to Nielsen, or triggers a beep and beep, which you need to listen to tell me more, and beep will send you automated email with coupon or play an audio clip. Believe me, these devices are always listening, Mike.
Yeah.
Be
careful what you say around them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know who is listening.
Yeah, who's going to be the first person that's going to get convicted of murder from the conversation he was planning somebody's demise that the device recorded. Do you think I'm joking?
I know. I don't think you're joking. Yeah, I mean, I think we all know what the NSA is all about, right?
Well, that's not in their charter, but we should. I turn my microphones off on my devices a lot. I don't let them just sit there willy-nilly and listen.
Yeah.
Because you have got a device that's got a microphone in it that you have authorized to allow to listen to you at all times. Mm-hmm.
Really think about that, right?
Yes.
Well, it's the same thing with your cell phone in your pocket, right?
Now think about this. Law enforcement doesn't need to. They just send a wiretap request to Amazon.
Well, Todd, think about it. All of our smartphones have a constant internet connection, right? And they have a microphone in them that is actually pretty good, right?
You can't go into a DoD facility with an Apple Watch on.
What does that tell you? Yeah.
Because they have a microphone in them,
Yeah.
That's why, DoD facilities, you go to it and they have a big wall of nothing but phone lockers. You put your phone in, lock you're not allowed to bring your phone into the facility. So, I think about that for a minute or two. So, I'm not saying, again, let's be very, very, very clear here. Unless you're a bad guy, they don't care.
Well, they may be recording certain keywords that have been mentioned, but they're only going to listen to it if they have some sort of suspicion.
Or they go to FISA court and get a warrant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're not, there's no guy sitting in some basement somewhere in Washington, D.C. that's listening to every word that you say.
Believe me, would that be the worst job ever?
Yeah, that would be a pretty bad job.
So anyway, we've digressed from the topic here, but
yes, we have.
I think podcasting is strong as ever. I'm hopeful for the space, and I think smart devices are gonna, they will make up a segment of stuff of listening, but we got to get them to 5%. When we get to 5%, I'll get more excited. Get them into the top 10 list, and get them into the top 10 list. Then that's something to talk about. But right now, they're not even the top 10. They're, somewhere in the, lower hundreds. So
Todd, I wanted to also talk with you about what do you think is happening with the Apple Podcast app right now? They've had a lot of people beating up on them over the last month or two. Do you think Apple's losing share right now, and folks like Overcast and others are gaining share?
No.
No?
Most people are too lazy. They just want to use the app that's on the phone.
So all this bashing that certain
It's
people have
podcasters
been,
bashing.
yeah, and listeners don't care.
No, it works. Subscribe to a show. And we're proving people are subscribing to shows.
Yeah, most listeners don't really care about truncated titles, right?
No, they don't even read it. They want to listen to the show.
Yeah, it's true.
You write for Google. You record for your audience. You know, you don't write for your audience. You write for Google. I've said this for years. When people flipping out about how stuff looks, I'm just write for Google and record for
as
your
long
audience.
as there's a play button on there, or a skip forward button, or a subscribe button. That's pretty much. And if they do a keyword search in there, if they have a friend that recommends a podcast to them, and they can open the app and find that
by title,
by title or topic for that matter.
Yeah, good luck on that one.
Well, you should be able to, right? If the podcaster has done even a basic job of metadata.
Yeah, well, like I said, good luck with that. Title, I think you just tell people search by title of show, and that way guaranteed they're going to find it.
Sure. And then that's basically, this whole topic of there's a discovery problem, just, it really doesn't exist.
So what there is a podcaster promotion problem.
Yeah, it's podcasts that aren't growing audience fast enough, and they want to blame somebody else other than their own marketing of their own show.
I spend 5 times as much time marketing and pushing my show than I do recording my show.
Yeah.
So, and I think that article that was on Jacobs Media with everyone's comments, it just shows you where the lines are divided in where people think there's a discovery problem. It's just so typical. It just made me laugh the whole way through. Saw the name, I'm like, oh, that person's going to say there's a discovery problem. Oh, that person's going to say they're in it too. I mean, I was right about 90% of the time.
Yeah. It's obvious, Todd. I mean, that's what some of the comments were. Yeah, there's a discovery problem, but they can't really articulate it necessarily in their article or their comment. Yeah.
But, this is where, going back to what you said about networks and boutique groups and cross-promotion, I built the Tech Podcast Network purely on cross-promotion. We cross-promoted. I mean, we were masters of it. It was required. You were part of Tech Podcast, you had to promote another show during your show. We made it a requirement. Yeah. Every show you had to promote at least one show.
Well, and Todd, I think this coming year is going to see more podcasts advertising on other podcasts. I think we're going to see that happen more. As the revenue numbers go up for the big shows, they're going to start buying ad campaigns on other podcasts to scoop up more listeners.
I got a show that wants to do a deal. Well, we've got an RFP into them. They're trying to figure out their launch date. They're going to spend a significant 5-figure number to promote this new show. So yes, we're already seeing it. And they want to go to us. And here's a problem. They want to advertise in a show that contains listeners that would definitely. Some of these podcasters don't want to run these ads because they think they're going to lose audience share to this new show. We've actually had some shows saying, no, I'm not running that ad. I'm like, okay, they're going to find out about it one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I actually told the vendor, you ought to be all these shows that we're going to run the deal in, you cross promote them in your shows. That way we get some tangible mesh here.
I mean, what's probably more likely to happen is that listener will potentially give that other show a try.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to leave listening to your show.
What we found with, and Rob, you were on those early years, what we found is that we all kind of shared and audiences melded and settled in because someone may not have been real happy with me completely. Went over to listen to the Mike Tech Show, and Mike Tech Show maybe had an audience member over there that wasn't completely melding with Mike, and he came over to me, and it all kind of worked out in the wash. And we all kind of shared people, and some of us had listeners were listening to 4, 5, 6 different shows on the network. It works. You just, you don't have to be part of a network either. And here's what I found for those that are listening, and I think I've said this before, is if you like a show and you want them to promote your show, you promote their show on your show first, and then send them over the time hack. Say, hey, I love you guys' show. I did a shout out for you. Here's the link. If you like my show, I'd love a reciprocal call out. And 9 out of 10 times, they'll give you a reciprocal call out on their show.
Mm-hmm.
And because, they appreciate you commented on, and they'll do it in return. At least the cool guys will, and gals.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be part of a network. But you have to do you can't expect, hey, can you promote my show? They're like, who are you? But you promote their show on your show. And, oh, okay, that guy was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if everybody kind of works together and helps drive audience to both shows, it creates a win-win.
Yeah.
I know people have been doing this for a long time, but people get competitive in how they think about this stuff. And I don't want to spend time promoting some other show. That's what it kind of gets back to.
Tim says, I'm amazed how many times I title search in some apps and don't get to the podcast. Whatever SEO logarithm some apps use still need work. This is true. Mike also says, yes, absolutely. Cross promotion of other podcasts will be the thing in 2018. Freakonomics is doing it with his new show. Or what's he doing, Mike? Buying ads or cross promoting? Ask Pat is a great example of cross promotions. It would never have taken off without him promoting it in his smart passive income. Okay, so he's promoting his own show, and I promote this show in my show. So, that's like basic podcast 101 stuff. So of course,
yeah.
But I'm talking about stuff out of people that shows that you're listening to. That's in your playlist. And if you're not listening to other podcasts, you're doing yourself a disservice. I learned so much. First of all, I learned what not to do. Number 2, I'm like, oh, that was a good idea. And I steal everything that's a good idea. So if you're not listening to, a dozen so podcasts, and if you're not listening to some of the top podcasts, you can become a much better podcaster by sampling. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. What's your current show listening ratio, Rob? You know what mine is.
Well, I usually have close to 100 subscriptions.
Me too. I have 100 new ones every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I struggle to get through them all, but I don't listen to all of them very long. I may only listen for 15 minutes, or I get sucked in on some, and take notes. Still use a little hand recorder to take notes on shows.
Yeah. Well, it looks like iHeartRadio, speaking of one of the music platforms that is embracing podcasting, is definitely kind of making some moves. It looks like Rob did something. Oh, I guess this is like old news, isn't it? I'm looking at something from Pod to Pod that came up from 2016. Okay,
yeah, you got to be careful. His headlines rotate in the top there and has some old stuff.
Oh, yeah. I got caught in something there.
Yeah, okay. I did too the other day, so don't feel bad. But No, what is the rest of you there in chat? We've got a bunch of people. Of course, if you're on YouTube, we got a bunch of people on YouTube. We're at newmediashow.com/live. You can join the YouTube and actually join the chat room there, or send me a comment in the live chat on YouTube. I'm watching that. What does the audience think? What do you think the number one thing for podcasting is going to be in 2018? Or what do you guys hope it will be? What's if you had a big wish? I dream of genie getting out of the bottle and say you have one wish, and it can be only related to your podcast. What would it be? How about you, Rob? What would be your one wish if you can actually make it happen? Mine's simple.
I think just grow audience, I think, is the biggest thing for me.
For me, it would be dedicated podcasting app delivered with the OEMs by Google.
Yeah. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that's really the key to what I'm hoping for, which is growing more listeners to this medium. And getting beyond that, what are we at right now? 20, 30% weekly listeners to podcasts. So.
Oh, globally? I mean, in the United States, and the percentage of people. Oh, yeah. You're never going to get to 100, but it'd be nice to get above 50. Yeah,
and I think that Android making this, and Google making this move could get us to 50.
Geek News Central, 37.5% Android listeners.
Yeah.
You can get there on your own show. You just got to be willing to promote it and say the right things.
Yeah, my Speaker Live show is pretty high on Android.
Yeah, you said it was too. It was pretty high, right?
Yeah. And a lot of that listenership comes from the Spreaker app that's on Android. Actually, I have my own custom app for the show. Plus, I have the show available in the Spreaker app. So there's a lot of listenerships, that comes in through those two apps.
I think if you look at some shows, I'm still shocked. My see shows are in like the 90 percentile that are iOS only. It just shows you they've done nothing to promote outside of iOS. So,
yeah, here if I go in and I look at my percentages, there's about 20% are coming off of the Spreaker website. About 16% of it are coming off of Spreaker Android. 13% is coming off of the Apple Core Media on the iPhone. And 8.5% is coming off of Apple Core Media iPad, and about 8% is coming off of Overcast. So,
just as a reminder, today is the last day. If you're live, this is the last day of Build Your Blueberry. Our 30 days of giving away prizes every day wraps up today. If you weren't watching on Christmas, you missed an awesome prize. In the last 2 or 3 days, there's been some big ticket items in there that we've given away. But today's the last day. This wraps it up. So thousands of dollars of prizes, and congrats to all.
So what kind of stuff have you been giving away?
Oh man, it's run the gambit. Let me load it up here and see what the last prize for today is. I picked them all, so I should know exactly what it was. But we had so many of each. Let's see here. Today, what's today's last prize? Well, here's on the 28th, we gave away 12 acoustic panels. On the 27th, we gave away a Zoom H6. On the 26th, we gave away more acoustic panels. On the 25th, we gave away a Heil PR40. On the 24th, we gave away a Mackie mixer. On the 23rd, we gave away a set of Audio-Technica's headphones. On the 22nd, we gave away a Scarlett 2-channel microphone interface. So yeah, wow. Yeah. So there's been some good stuff there. On On the 20th, we gave away another Zoom. So I'm looking for today's post. I wonder if it's not up yet. Well, you have a chance. Those auto posts, but I thought it was supposed to be up. I'll have to go look. But anyway, that was lots of cool prizes. But anyway, it's over. If you're listening to this later, it's too late.
So Todd, we're going to be off with the show the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And well, actually, here's the deal. I don't fly back until, let me bring up January's calendar here. I come back on the 14th, so I'm definitely out. The 6th and the 13th. First show back will be on the 20th.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's getting close to Podfest, Orlando.
Yeah, and I will not be going to Podfest. Mike Dell and Mackenzie from our team will be going down. My daughter's getting married, or we're having a big celebration in February. She's already gotten married, but we're having a big celebration in February in Tampa. So I'll be going to that. And
but you're still going to be in Florida, huh?
Well, not at the same time as Podfest, but it was so close. I didn't want to go down, then fly all the way back.
And then go back again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was part of it. I'm looking here. Where is this info?
So we're back again on January 20th.
We are back on January 20th. Yeah. And probably the world will explode between now and the 20th. That's probably, you'll be chomping at the bit.
Yeah. Things will live, who knows? We may be in nuclear war by then. Who knows?
Yeah, whatever. And the 20 minutes, that'll be all over. All right. So we're an hour and a half.
Oh.
We've had great participation in the audience today. Definitely appreciate it. And for those who've been hanging out with us, we want to thank you for hanging with the show this whole year. And of course, we'll be back at it next year. Look forward to an exciting 2018. And of course, if you have comments on today's show, Todd@blueberry.com, or you can follow me on Twitter @GeekNews. Of course, our company's Twitter account is @Blueberry, which is available. But Rob, how about you?
Probably the best way to reach out to me is on Twitter, @Rob Greenlee, and you can certainly send me an email if you want. Rob@Spreaker.com or Rob@RobGreenlee.com works as well. I do the Spreaker Live Show every Wednesday, so you can check that out at SpreakerLiveShow.com.
And just to put in a pitch here, if you guys want to see how we do a trade show and get educated on that, for CES, we will be going live at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, January 9th. We'll be on every day that week for about 10 hours a day. We'll have a new guest every 15 minutes. A variety of hosts. It'll be it'll be either me, Don Bain, the Gadget Professor, or one of the F5 Live team members. So again, January 9th, and you can follow at geeknewscentral.com, or I'll be up on Facebook, and we'll be doing YouTube Live as well. So just watch the website at geeknewscentral.com for all the details and the live blog and all that. So get to go wear my other hat for a couple of weeks.
That'll be an exciting show. Lots of new things going to be announced down there, I'm sure.
Yep, and I'm staying completely in the sands. I'm not leaving. I'm going to be with all the startups and with home innovation stuff. So I'll be.
So you're not staying up in the Fremont district?
Well, that's where I'm sleeping. But
okay.
Yeah,
so you're going to be up there.
Yeah,
okay.
But we're going to be exclusively in the sands, or Rika Park, or Tech West, or whatever they're calling it this year. And
gotcha.
This part of the Venetian complex. We will not be leaving that building. And it's actually the Sands Exposition Center is where it's officially at. That's where all this stuff is at. 900 startups from just about every corner of the planet. So we're really excited about touching base.
So you're not going to cover any other part of the CES event?
I'm not.
Only there. Huh?
Only there.
Wow.
Now, Marl Anderson from the Tech Ranch, he's got a similar space that we had in North Hall last year. So he's going to be over on that side. So we got to figure out from Marlowe. We're probably going to have 2 streams up. I don't know don't know what his broadcast schedule is, but so we will have other coverage. But my team, the Geek News Central team, is not leaving Sands Eureka Park. Now, there's a reason for it, and I've talked about it in the past. Is that the smaller the booth, the bigger the ability that we've had to make that help that person grow their product, do partnerships, do advertising deals, all that stuff. The bigger the booth, you get the PR hacks in there, and they're running interference in a big way. And if you're a PR person, I can give you some training on what not to do. But they try to protect their bottom line in a big way. But I learned something new, though. Did you know that PR firms work on if you do a co-advertising deal with them, unlike advertising firms that run on a 15% commission, PR firms run on a 30% commission. Did you know that?
Wow.
I didn't know that either. So if you let's say you do $1,000 deal, $300 is what the PR firm keeps. And before it ever, it's ridiculous. Absolutely. It's and it's semi-criminal in my opinion, but that's what they do. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next.
All right.
On the 20th, January 20th, back here live with the New Media Show. Everyone take care. See you next time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Aloha. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yep.
Can't find the right button here.